Hey everybody, how's it going? So this is going to be a bit noisy and annoying. My bike is making this squeaking thing where the handlebar thingy attaches to the fork thingy. There's a squeak. Everything in my life seems to be squeaking or creaking lately. So I just got fixed this thing with the axle. Where the wheel was kind of moving back and forth. If there's any problem with your axle or anything stripped, I cannot get one locally. I need to wait for it to get shipped from California, from this one place that sells it, that only sells it with FedEx ground shipping. It's because I got this thing called the bike seat on my bike, and the only axle that fits it is one person sells it. Like, I went to every single bike shop in the city. None of them have an axle that would allow me to fit that on this bike. It's interesting because, you know, everybody talks about New York. You can find anything in New York, this, that. Like, no, you can't. You can only find it if it's popular. If it's not something that 90% of the masses want, then you got to go on the internet. So, right after I fixed that, I shit you not, this started squeaking like crazy. And every time I fix one thing on this bike, something else breaks. So I've just kind of learned to live with it and laugh and accept that nothing will ever be fully working on this at any given time. At least until we move. Once we move, I will have a nice, good 200 square feet of the store that's nothing but my bike shop, which makes me happy. And so today I want to talk a little bit more about what I talked about in yesterday's video on imposter syndrome. So what do I mean by that? The feeling that you don't belong here. Well, let me just give you an idea of how the business was starting in the absolute very beginning. So I used to use the park because I couldn't afford to have a proper space. I couldn't afford to rent a proper space in the city when I first started my business. So I used to actually invite people to show up at Herald Square Park. Or I used to do house calls and come to their location. And I did that for quite a while. Now, at some point, it got inconvenient to have, let's say if a bunch of people all wanted the same time when you get out of work, like 3 or 4 people wanted 5 o'clock and it was raining, I'd have to do house calls, but then I'd have to pick and choose which customers I take and which I don't, which is obviously not the best for a business model. You don't want to say no to anybody. So there was a studio that my friend had been working at, and it was owned by a cokehead. He was like a fat cokehead version of Adam Newman. I swear, if the guy did not smell so bad and if he wasn't over 280 pounds and shorter than me, he probably would have been able to get an Adam Newman amount of money out of people. This is a guy that showed up to work high every day, coked out of his mind, and still managed to get stuff like, you know, people like the guy from the deli on 30th Street and 8th Avenue to just show up with $15,000 or $20,000 in cash in his smock and say, just here, this is for you. I'm sure that you'll be able to do amazing things with it. And obviously he never paid any of them back because all the money went into the coke. But I made a deal with the guy that said, I will make sure everything in the studio works to a standard where you will never have a customer call you to complain that their session didn't go as they wanted and want their money back. Whether it's a recording session or a rehearsal, you're never going to get a phone call or a 1-star that says, I wasn't able to practice in the way I wanted because X didn't work. You know, I tried to ease his concern and provide value in that way. In exchange, what I would like is that you greet my customers when they show up as if they were your customers, that the people who work here do that, and that I'm allowed to keep my parts, my tools, my screens, supplies, ultrasonic cleaner, all that stuff here so I can do work. And I'll use the spare areas. I won't cost you any money by using up space that you could bill for or anything like that. Yeah. And he said, cool, I can do that. So we had that arrangement, and that lasted for about 2.5 years until the space was taken over by new people once they were in way too much debt, who apparently were not consumers of drugs, more dealers of it on a mass nature. I didn't really care about that. It didn't bother me. I talked about this in the $30,000 pocket dial. What bothered me was that they were telling us how to do our jobs and how to run a recording studio or a rehearsal studio. And it's like, listen, I get it. You know, oh, come on. Just fucking go. Like, it's one thing to park in a bike lane. It's another to, like, just stay there when the light turns. Anyway, they were telling us how to do our job. And I remember talking to this woman I was dating at the time about it and saying, you know, like, listen, you do you, I do me. I don't tell you how to sell large volumes of drugs. Please don't tell me that JBL Eon speakers belong in a high-end mix room. They don't. It's like, those are rehearsal PA speakers. Nobody's gonna ask for that. Nobody wants that. Like, you sell drugs and I do this. The problem is that my phone had pocket dialed the manager that I had just gotten off the phone with, and he heard it right while he was within earshot of the owner of the company, who is quite involved with drug trafficking to my knowledge at the time. And he called me. They said a lot of things about, you know what I could fucking do to him, this, that, and the other. And long story short, I wasn't using the place anymore. But I had to use that place because I didn't have the money. So then I wound up thinking, crap, I'm screwed. I took all my stuff, brought it home, and I just wasn't able to do business out of my home anymore. It had been like 2.5, 3 years in. And I was carrying boxes to the post office, like 15, 16 at a time, 12 blocks down, because I had to. I couldn't have a post office pickup because I needed to do house calls. You have to pay 15 or 30 bucks a day to have the post office show up at a specific time rather than any good old time, and I couldn't afford the $500-600 bucks a month at that point for that. So I would do that, do all my house calls, but I would pick up all my mail-ins at this mail-in center that I was paying. No car, no buffeting back then or anything. It didn't work. I need to find a space. So I found a space that I could share with this guy named John Grossbard at 251 West 30th Street. That's the, if I made this place any nicer, you couldn't afford it guy. He actually used to say that quite regularly, might I add. And what was nice about that space, it was $3,300. He didn't want first, last deposit. He just wanted me to pay the first month of rent. Which, and again, if the place was any nicer, I couldn't afford it, because when you rent a real retail office or storefront, they ask you for first, last, or 2 or 3 month security deposit. Like here, I paid a 2-month security deposit and 1 month rent. I couldn't afford to do all that. I could barely afford the $3,300 a month he wanted. So I shared it with a friend. I shared the space with a friend, and there I went. And he was bringing in sessions. One of his friends also became a monthly tenant, was paying like $500 a month, I think. And I was sharing a basement. Now, I couldn't afford a real office, that's why I was using it. This was at 251 West 30th Street. You had to, if you read my Yelp reviews from the time, they're very funny. So you had to walk through the freight entrance, past the dumpster that had Club Rebel's trash, which smelled awful. Think about a club in New York City's trash. What the fuck are you doing? I had to walk past their trash, go down a dark, dank basement that reeked of weed and coke, to go to this back office of a hallway that had a sheep on it, and that was me. But the reason you had to do that is because I couldn't afford better. And then I finally got to a point where I thought, maybe I could find myself a store. So I spent 6 months looking up and down, dealing with all these lying, scummy realtors that said, you're not going to find this, you're not going to find that. They actually showed me a space on 10th Street and 1st Avenue that's now, I think, an optometrist's office or some eyeglass place for about $9,000 or $9,500 a month. It's slightly smaller than what I have now, and I shit you not, about 3 times the rent of what, because at the time I was paying $3,500 for what I have now, and the optometrist place was $9,500. So I get that space, and the thing is, I need to pay a security deposit. Again, they wanted a 3-month security deposit, not just first month's rent. So $3,500 I can do, having to make it look nice, do the stuff I need to make it look like a store, and pay $10,500 I couldn't. So what I did in order to pay it was I put a bunch of services on eBay, board repair, screen repair, this, that, and the other, and I put it at about 50% the cost of everybody else doing it. This is back when you could still do that. In 2020, you go on eBay, you see people replacing backlight fuses for 15 or 20 bucks. That's done for. I would not be able to do this in 2020. But in 2011, I could. So, if everybody else was like, $200 or $300 for screen on this model, I did it for like, $100. If everybody else wanted $300 for board repair, I'll do it for like $120 or $90, whatever. Something ridiculous. But the caveat is I think I put something around a 6 to 12 week turnaround time. And the idea behind the 6 to 12 week turnaround was if I didn't have to do it immediately, then I could use the money to pay for the deposit, but I wouldn't have to buy the part that I needed immediately, or I'd have time to do it. So I could keep this going for a while. So I wasn't really running a Ponzi scheme on money so much as a Ponzi scheme on my time. Because what I would do is, he really needs to rush to run over that kid. I think there's a school around here since I see a bunch of buses. But that van really needed to try to run over that kid that was crossing the street. You see how he sped up there? Very important. Anyway, So I have all these services that are cheap, and what I was doing is I was dealing with my normal customers during the 10 to 8, and then I would stay until 1 or 2 in the morning to deal with the large influx of these other customers. So the way that, since I lowered the price, I got a lot more people using the service than I otherwise would have. So instead of getting, like 1 or 2 mail-ins a week, I got like 15 or 30 mail-ins a week, which is insane. With eBay, it's different. It's considerably different dealing with eBay than it is dealing with your own website or your own store. If I lower prices by 50% on my store, maybe over time I'll get some more business, but for the most part it's going to stay the same. Not a lot of people say no or care. On eBay, it's all about price. If you're even a tiny bit cheaper, you're going to get a lot of people showing up. Like, you lower your price 20 cents on the screen. I'm not kidding. In 2011, I lower the price of a B156XW02 from 5806 to 5802, so I'm 3 cents cheaper than Vivo or Bliss. And that's going to result in me going from selling 16 a day to selling 110 a day. It's just the way eBay works. eBay is a price beast. Quality be damned. Even time frame be damned, because I was telling people 6 to 12 week turnaround. And PayPal didn't want to release money immediately back then for this. So they would only release it once you ship the item. So what I did is I first class mailed everybody a little pamphlet that talked about our company, our history, what makes us different, the difference between, grade A screens and grade A minus screens. What does the 9 mean on the side of an LG box, and what does that mean for you getting a lower quality screen? Nice little pamphlet that explained how we did business. And PayPal releases the money. So I use that to pay the deposit. But I couldn't just pay the deposit out of my bank account because I didn't have the money. I couldn't pay the deposit using a loan because nobody would give me a loan. And if I lived just about anywhere else in the United States, I would have just been able to pay the deposit in the rent because it would have been reasonable, rather than what $10,500 deposit to rent, which is essentially a hallway that is poorly constructed. So now I go to find this new place, and it's a similar experience with contractors. Most of the contractors don't show up. The few that give bids will ghost you after you agree to the bid. So they'll give you a bid and you'll say, oh great, I'm not going to lowball that price, it's fine, I'll pay it. And they still don't show up. If you want honesty in a realtor, you have to be looking at $1 million properties, because honesty is something that you can't afford if you're a normal bloke. If you're somebody that just wants to pay between $3,000 to $15,000 for a store, which may sound absolutely crazy to all of you in normal land, but in New York is sadly normal blokeville, in pricing, then you have to deal with liars that make up shit. That will make up shit regarding why there's a light fixture behind a wall, that make up shit regarding why there's a door 10 feet above the ground, that make up shit about the size of the space, everything. Honesty is something that you can't get. And they'll tell you straight up, you're asking for too much, you're asking for too much. One of the videos that got flagged by YouTube was a video where I was talking about apartments. By the way, thank you to whoever at YouTube got rid of that BS channel strike for the cat video and the apartment video. But one of them was me walking past some ad, and it just said it was advertisement for apartments. So just walking by the neighborhood, $8,000 a month, $10,000 a month, 1.2 million, 2.4 million, 10 million, 20 million. Like, all these places are ridiculous, and it reminds me of this conversation that I had with my stepmom, Adele, when she was visiting from Wisconsin. She was visiting from Wisconsin, and she sees the pricing. So she didn't see the pricing, but she just saw it was open house or something around 59th Street and 5th Avenue in that area. And she looks at me in 2009 and goes, hey, Lewis, I heard you're looking for an apartment. Back then, I was renting a space that was $700 because that was, this like 50 to 100 square foot box, because that's all I could afford at the time. And she says, oh, look, I saw you were looking for a place. Maybe you want to look. And my dad and I start laughing at the top of our lungs in the middle of 5th Avenue. And the reason for that is because that's a joke. That's not for us. We can't live there. Those apartments are going to be $10 to $20 million. They're going to have a $4,000 to $10,000 a month maintenance fee after you pay the $10 to $20 million for it, and God knows what else. And the feeling that I have over and over again, and that's really starting to seep in, and Eric has been criticizing and chastising me for this, rightfully so, saying, you know, you should expect, if you ask somebody to do a job and you don't lowball them, it's up to them to do the fucking job, is that I wind up feeling like it's my fault for wanting service in this city. It's my fault for wanting someone to do their job right because I don't belong here. And the reason I feel that way is because I feel like the city is made for people that make considerably more money than I do, who have the ability to pay more and outbid me so that they can actually get contractors to want to do a good job for them. Maybe, because that's the thing, once you're used to every single person fucking you, like you get a gym membership at the place you can afford, it's filled with cockroaches and has a dirty shower. You find an apartment that you can afford and there's no hot water because the pipes freeze because they weren't insulated properly when it gets cold in the winter, and the radiator and the heat doesn't work right, and everything's falling apart, and you have to live with 3 other people that smell bad just so that you can pay $1,000 for where you live, so that you can, and that $1,000 is you're spending about, you know, more than 70% of your paycheck on it when you're starting out. It adds to a feeling that you don't belong here, that New York is not for you. New York is for the other people. New York is for the people that when you walk by, you see that there is an apartment that costs $8,000 or $12,000 or, you know, $4 million. It's like, oh yeah, cool, just put it on my Amex. That New York City is for the people that when they need a store constructed, it's like, oh, you know, like 1.2 million, yeah, 1.2 million to do some sheetrock, some drywall, some painting, you know, put up a sign, build a counter, yeah, absolutely, yeah, go for it. Like, New York is for those people. If you want something done properly, all the people that know how to do it properly are going to be doing work for everybody else. They're there for everybody else, but they're not there for you. If you don't have $1 million, they don't want to hear from you. If you're paying less than $4,000 to $8,000 a month for an apartment, your landlord sees you as a liability. That it's keeping them from doing minor overhauls in the kitchen and doing that seal on the floor glass shit so that they can get the $4,000 to $6,000 out of you that they want, not the $1,000 or $2,000 that they're getting because you have a. Damn, that kid just served me. I just got served by a kid. On a foldable bike, no less. Yeah. I guess I'm old enough to get served by the next generation. But his bike doesn't squeak either. The city is made for the people that can do that. And if you're anything, and if you're not a millionaire or a multi-millionaire, then you just don't belong here. Because everything you get is going to be a shit experience. And it's like, and after a while, you know, people will say, Lewis, I can't believe that you accept this, or I can't. I'm honestly, OSB, plywood, any of that shit, if I get something that even remotely works within 2 months, believe it or not, for the amount of money I spent, I'm not kidding you, in New York City, that's a good thing. If you notice, if you walk around the city with any regularity, you will see construction projects that go on for 4 or 5 months that bankrupt businesses. You will see, if you walk around the city with regularity, lots of businesses that open up and then a year later they close. And they wind up getting screwed by something, whether it's they opened up a restaurant. By the way, I figured out the reason all the restaurants at that 235 East 4th Street location were failing. It's because the building has gas problems that they haven't addressed. So at random times, and any of the restaurants there won't be able to cook. You kind of need to have a kitchen to have a restaurant. You know what I'm saying? But I will be happy if I can get that project even remotely done close to properly, because the expectation, sadly, is typically that you won't be able to get it done even remotely close to properly. You just won't be done well at all. It'll be done well if you're Aldo's, it'll be done right if you're Barney's, it'll be done right if you're Best Buy, if you're Whole Foods, if you're Trader Joe's, but it's not going to be done right if you're you. By the way, we just went by the restaurant. You may have noticed on the left side of the street earlier that it wasn't rented to anybody. Yeah, that guy's like, oh yeah, I'll just rent it to a Chinese restaurant if I don't rent it to you. There's no reason for me to rent it to you when I could easily get the Chinese restaurant in here. Yeah, that was like 3 months ago, man. Where's your Chinese restaurant? When these people play hardball, like, it's so funny. But, and it's a weird feeling because I've been in this city. You know, I feel like I genuinely don't belong here. Anytime I advocate for myself, when it comes to dealing with a landlord or a contractor or an architect or a plumber or just like anybody who I just need to do their job, I don't feel like I belong here. I grew up here. I was born in Staten Island. I got my first job in Manhattan when I was 17. I interned at the best studio in the world, Avatar Studios. I worked there 40 to 60 hours per week under some of the, after I proved myself cleaning toilets, cleaning shit, doing bitch errands for months. I got to work under some of the best technicians that I've ever met. They taught me a lot of amazing stuff. I got a job there. I got to move on and work as a freelance tech for other studios. I started my business around 19 or 20 years old. I moved to Brooklyn around 19 years old on my own. And then I started a business, and I slowly grew that business from where it was, from being broke, into being a 13-employee company that's looking to rent a 2,300 square foot space. And I'm funding it, outside of like I think the $30K that came in from GoFundMe, which, by the way, thank you incredibly to all of you. Like the rest of it, that's because this is going to be about a $100,000 move, probably 100 to 150K move. I'm funding, I'm going to be funding all of that, the rest of that myself. It's not like somebody just walked over to me and said, "Oh, I really like what you're doing. Lois, here's $300,000. Give it back to me when you want. Signed, SoftBank." But the thing is, after all that, like, I'm 31 years old, been here my whole life. I genuinely feel like I don't belong here. I feel like I have a sense of guilt, and it's so fucked up because I don't think I should. And other people think that this is ridiculous. But this is the thing with emotions. Emotions aren't always rational, but you can't control the fact that you feel them anyway. You can control how you act on your emotions, but you can't control the fact that you feel them. And the emotion that I feel over and over again is guilt. I feel like I'm trying to do something I shouldn't be doing. This city is not for a repair shop. This city is for Whole Foods, for Starbucks, for Trace, for Trader Joe's, for pretty ceiling-to-floor glass shit like that, where they have nice luxury pictures from Steiner showing how, for over there, showing how nice it is. This is what the city is for. If the city is going to have repair shops, it's going to have some fancy schmancy, super fancy franchise place, or it's going to have Apple stores, or it's going to have all this other stuff. It's not for me. It's not for me. And the reason that I'm running into all the problems I'm running into is because at its core, I'm trying to identify as something that I am not, a New York business person. I'm trying to identify as something. I'm trying to bat outside my weight class. I'm trying to do something that would require millions of dollars with thousands of dollars. And because I'm trying to do something that I should be doing as a millionaire, which is trying to have a business in the city, and living here as a thousandaire, that I am always going to be behind the 8 ball. But that not only just that, but anything bad that happens is not the fault of the contractor, not the fault of an architect, not the fault of a plumber. It's genuinely mine. I don't even mean my fault in terms of, you're the business owner. You take responsibility for the good as well as the bad thing, because I do believe in that. As a business owner, you take responsibility. You get the praise. You get the praise when you get a CBC News piece done on you that gets viewed millions and millions of times by people who think that you're an honest owner. And you get the shit when you hire a jackass that does something they're not supposed to. I mean it from a genuine, fundamental morality sense of you're trying to do something that you're not supposed to be doing. You're trying to be something you're not supposed to be. It's kind of like when... I'm trying to find a better analogy, but I can't at the moment. Mostly because my fingers are freezing off. Paul's parents actually got me a really nice set of gloves, and I remembered to wear them yesterday, and I took the other ones that I had today. But I feel that way from a morality sense. The same way, how to put this? Like if you're a 60 or 70-year-old guy, and then this beautiful model class, 19-year-old woman is flirting with you like crazy. A part of you knows, even if that's what's happening, it's like, this isn't for me, why is this happening? Why am I, like, you're trying to, even if you start dating the 19-year-old, it's always going to be in the back of your head, like, I'm 70, what the fuck? This is not supposed to be happening, this is weird, I'm not 20 anymore, like, I'm trying to do something I'm not supposed to be. And I feel the same way trying to run a business here. I feel like I'm trying to do something that I shouldn't be doing. And all the shit that I'm running into, granted, other people may be doing bad things to me. Other people may be doing incompetent work for me. But the thing that I keep coming back to is that it's on me, because I should know better. Like with if you're a 70-year-old dude and you don't, and this 19-year-old model from Instagram starts hitting on you and wants to go out with you, and you're not really that interesting, and even if things go terrible and she winds up like stealing a bunch of crap from your place, or I don't know, yelling at you, screaming at you, humiliating you in front of family, doing something that's really foul, you may think, okay, this person did something to me that was really foul, but at the end of the day, is it like, don't you have some culpability there? Aren't you somewhat responsible for not ever asking yourself, why is it that a beautiful bombshell 19-year-old wants to date a 70-year-old guy? My dad used to talk about that because he worked as a stockbroker in the 80s. And he was into his 40s at that point, and like every now and then, if he'd wear a really sharp suit because of a meeting or something, there would be people that would treat him a certain way that he would never be treated normally. And he wasn't even one of the people that made a lot of money. He was more on the scrub side of salary. And he always said, I remember when I get treated differently that there's likely a reason for it, and there's a perception there that otherwise wouldn't get me treated that way. But anyway, like I realized that regardless of if I have an architect that draws a wall through an electrical panel. If I have somebody who takes 2 days to get back to us on virtually anything and ignores my calls after about $7,000, like, yeah, they did something shitty, and they're a shit company. I just got an email from them today about the refund saying, oh yeah, we had some clients pay late, so please bear with us as we try to process your refund. And Steve and I are laughing our asses off here. It's like, is your company really so fucking broke that you can't cut a $2,000 check? Because I gotta say, for all the financial shit I've gone through over the years, man, I'm really glad I'm far away from the point where writing a $2,000 check was something, like, to keep a client from suing me was something that was a struggle to do. But, yeah, they sucked. They did a shit job, and they deserve to get shit for it. But at the end of the day, how much of the culpability falls on me for trying to run a business in New York City when I'm unfit to? How much of the culpability falls on me for trying to live in a millionaire city as someone who is not a millionaire? How much of it is me being stupid for imagining that me, or that an architect is going to want to do a good job for me when they can do a good job for all the other fucking businesses in the city that are willing to pay them way more than I am? Like, I'll let them take their responsibility for the fact that they suck at their job. But how much of it is really... See, that's lame. You didn't have to switch lanes like that with no turns. I heard that coming, and I'm glad I looked, because if I didn't look, that guy probably would have... I've gotten to a point where I'm fairly adept at just hearing stupid driving behind me. Try to have everything open. You never know when something's going to happen. Always be alert. Like even the shit with this plumber that we have. There's a radiator that needs to be moved so a counter can be installed. It was supposed to be moved a month ago. And they send somebody to do it. And the guy is supposed to do it, well, you said you didn't want it moved. And I go, where'd you get that from? The super. And I go, oh, you mean the same super that never got back to me on my quote and they ignored me and on the flooring. That super. The guy that I haven't spoken to since November 23rd. That super. I go, okay, we'll get it done. And then the guy says he shows up, but he doesn't show up. And then he shows up, and then he sends his assistant to show up the next day. 2 days later, after we finally bring up, listen, it says in my lease, if this doesn't get done, I don't have to pay rent. So, can we get on this now? Then he sends his assistant. The dude shows up and goes, okay, I need access to the super in order to turn off the heater or this, that, or the other. And then he calls and, Mr. Super ghosts and doesn't pick up his phone again. And then he goes to leave right before Paul figures out how to get that done without dealing with the super or whatever. I'm not sure exactly how that got solved, but would I be dealing with all of this stupidity over something as basic as moving a radiator if I was in one of the other buildings? Because this management company deals with a number of different buildings. I'm probably in the shipbuilding. I'm probably in the building where the store downstairs is $12,500 a month, and there's just a couple of apartments and a couple of floors upstairs. Maybe the plumber would show up immediately. If I'm in one of his buildings where the store, with a corner store in the basement, is $50,000 a month, and all the apartments upstairs are $8,000 to $12,000 a month maintenance fee after they paid $4 or $10 million for them in Soho. Maybe I'd get attention then. Maybe all the good ones are working on that, so they send the one that is not really competent over here, or they just don't put it together because it's like, who cares? He's only paying this much. And it's really weird. It's strange because if I go through from 11 or 12 years ago to now, if you told me when I was working in a park, if you told me back when I was working in a park in 2008 and 2009, telling people, oh, no, we're not going to meet at the park to go to my office. I'm plugged into, I'm using the park. I'm running my extension cord for my soldering iron from where they usually have concerts and hoping that nobody sees it, to this table where I am then going to perform work on your board. If you told that kid that's 10 years later, you would be looking at renting a 2,300 square foot store in Manhattan that your 13 employees will be working on 30 tickets a day, I would have laughed at you. I would have said, get the fuck away from me. Get out of here. That's ridiculous. I am never going to be that wealthy, that rich, that flush with cash. I will never be that wealthy. And the thing is, I'm here. I am that, I guess, quote, wealthy. And the funny thing is, here's the funny thing. I still feel as broke as I did 11 years ago. I feel exactly the same way that I did 10 years ago. Or 12 years ago now, I guess. 11, 12, somewhere around. I suck at math. I feel exactly the same way now that I felt then when I was so broke, I had to choose between whether or not I was going to get real pants to meet customers with instead of basketball shorts, or keeping in stock the LP133 WX1 TLA1 in addition to a B154 PW01V0 and V1. So I had a glossy V0 and a matte V1. Can't believe I still remember this shit all the way into 2020. It's such useless information. But I wanted to have every single thing in stock. So it's like, do I want to have every single thing in stock, or do I want to be able to show up to my customers wearing something but basketball shorts? Which one is it? You gotta choose, because you don't get both. And I kind of wonder, how much money do you actually need to have in New York City to not feel like an imposter? Pedaling. Alright, cop is coming. Right turn signal, nobody behind me. I actually checked if there's people behind me before I do a turn signal. When I say turn signal, I mean waving my arm out. High tech. But yeah, I do wonder, how much money do you actually need to have in the city before you don't feel like an imposter? At what point will I feel like I actually belong here? At what point will I feel like I can do things properly? At what point will I feel that I have the amount of money required, that when I have a project that I want to do, that every single thing can be done properly by the books to a point where everybody else would say, this is the standard, this is the quality, this is the way it should be done. And I think I'm likely going to move out before I even become even remotely close to that wealthy. Anyway, that's about it. Check on progress, how everything's going. I'll see you all later.